Hello, my name is NJ Johnson. My project is on the social dilemma, and so I broke down my project into the dilemma of dysfunction, talking about how when elements of trust, as explained by Bren Brown, are broken, it leads then to teamwork dysfunction. And we're going to go into detail about how all of that is exhibited later. But first, we're going to start with how the 7 elements of trust were broken in the social dilemma. So the first element of trust is boundaries. That's defined as communicative and respectful communication about what is and isn't okay. The example of this is there's a family and the children in the show have a lot of problems using their phone too much. So the mom communicates, hey, for dinner, we're going to not use our phones for 1 hour. Now, this was broken when her youngest daughter literally broke into the place that she was storing the phones and took the phone and ran upstairs during dinner. The second element is reliability. So that's basically just completing commitments that you committed to. The example of this is after trying to not use his phone for a while, he gets back, one of the sons gets back into using the phone more frequently, and ends up finding a lot of really unfortunate news when he gets back into it. And then, he's not in a good mental state, so he's missing soccer practice, which is kind of an abnormal behavior for him. The third is accountability. So that's ownership of mistakes. Here we're going to switch a little bit away from the perspective family and go more towards the tech companies that make these social media platforms. So the first failure of trust is the tech companies' failure to fix unintended outcomes. Now, the documentary is broken up into several stories as told by former tech executives. So these were people who were paid to make these social media platforms as successful and as popular as possible. And they sort of, throughout the documentary, give inside secrets as to how these different companies, went about exploiting human psychology in order to get more clicks, more ad revenue, and so on. Now, one of them mentioned that none of the people who created social media platforms intended for this to happen. But at the same time, when they realized the problematic nature of a lot of what they were doing, none of them really reacted and said that they need to do things differently. Instead, they continued exploiting it for ad revenue, for clicks, for engagement, and have really made us depend on technology more. And have really made the problem worse. So that's a failure of accountability right there. Fourth element of trust is vault. Now, vault means that anything that you share as private information, it's trusted that it'll be kept as private information. I think we all know that if we have social media accounts, that even the things that we sort of assume are private, perhaps our birthday, anywhere that we're doing things in particular, I think sometimes we assume that those things are more private than they are. And it's not only that it's being publicly posted, but that information is actually being sold to advertising companies to better predict our behavior in a capital market and a social world. Fifth is integrity. Integrity means doing what is right even when it is difficult. Now, a lot of people would say that the tech companies and social media platforms have a right in a free world to do these things as long as they're being open about their practices. Well, it's pretty clear that a lot of our information being sold to advertising companies and other people that really just have commercial interests, it's not really made clear to people, and that would be the harder thing to do. But it's not made clear to people that their information is not only with the people that they share it with, and that their information is not only with the social media platform. Sixth is non-judgment. So this is defined as communicate openly without fear of judgment. Going back to the family who was used as a subject for this topic, the oldest daughter is very proud of not using her phone as much as her 2 siblings are reliant on it. And instead of, trying to kind of help them and figure out some kind of way that they can rely on technology in a healthy way. She really just kind of makes fun of them, calls her mom a bad parent for allowing the two other kids to have the phone. And that ultimately just kind of, puts the two other siblings in a little box where they don't want to critically evaluate their behavior, and they're just going to keep relying on their phones as much as possible. The seventh and final broken element of trust is generosity, and that's treating others with kindness. This is a big problem on social media because a lot of us kind of have a disconnect when we communicate with people on social media. The barrier of a keyboard and a screen to another screen and then a keyboard often allows us to make comments, such as in the movie, the youngest daughter, who probably about 11 or 12 years old, maybe younger. She posts a selfie, and a lot of people are complimenting her, saying she's really pretty. But then there's one comment that makes fun of the size of her ears. Despite all of the other comment, that one comment really just destroyed her night, and she was insecure. She adjusted the way that she did her hair from there on out. Despite all the likes, despite all the comments saying she's beautiful, that one comment, that one failed instance of generosity, that's really what stuck with her, and that's really what was on her mind for after that. So, after all of these elements of trust are broken, we go into teamwork dysfunction, which begins with the absence of trust. Now, I just exhibited how all of these elements of trust were broken. So next we'll move on to fear of conflict. Now this is exhibited by the good faith effort of tech executives leaving. So a lot of times these tech executives in the documentary who formerly were part of the game that exploited their users, they feared that if they spoke up and if they said, hey, should we do something about this? Should we maybe go back to our core mission of connecting people and not driving our societies apart? Instead of actually bringing those up and addressing real change, they just left their companies. They're making documentaries like this, but that means just the people that are willing to continue doing that are still the ones controlling the direction of these companies. Next is lack of commitment. Now, this one truly is completely functional. It's the only one on my list that I didn't list as a dysfunction because let's face it, I mean, from the companies to the advertisers to the users, we have never been more dependent and we have never been more driven to make these social media platforms and make the internet a part of our world. So, from the company's perspective, they are trying to continue to do things to get clicks, to get advertisers to go to their company, to create models that track our behavior and predict what we're going to do, what kind of content we're going to engage with more, what advertisers are going to get us to go to there more, and then ultimately which kinds of behaviors are going to make us tell our friends to get engaged with these sites, because it's all about engagement, it's all about clicks, and it's all about just exploiting psychology to do what they need to do to get you to come back. So this is operating in completely functional terms. However, the fourth one, lack of accountability exhibited by adjusting the goals of social media platforms. So again, we talked about what the tech executives who had left, that they saw some very very problematic things with where the tech companies were going and what they were ultimately trying to achieve here, the people who stuck around, unfortunately, really just went along with the trend of the beast that they created. And they really just dove into, for their own gain, quite frankly, really gained into exploiting human behavior, and didn't didn't make any kind of serious change of the way these companies try and get us to come back, and ultimately like what their real mission is, as far as making a more connected world. Last and final thing, inattention to team objectives. Somewhat similar to the fourth, this is exhibited by the incongruity of the objectives of everyone involved. So that's user, social media platform, and advertisers. Now, the users, in theory, use these social media platforms to be more connected with people not in their everyday life. Especially, during these times, it can feel like social media is one of the only ways to safely connect with people that we once felt that we were more connected with. But frankly, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, they really don't care how connected you feel. They care that you get enough of a dopamine high to want to come back and engage with their product. And then the advertisers, they want the same thing as the companies because they're the ones that are making money off of our engagement. And so with the advertisers and the social media platforms working in conjunction, and the amount of clicks and the amount of engagement, it was famously said that if you're not buying the product, then you are the product. And that means that if you're on Facebook and everything seems free, and you're the one that's having your information be sold and having your behavior tracked to make commercial predictions about what you're going to do, that your information is really what's being sold here and really what's making the money. So this is the exhibited dysfunction of, it sounds dramatic, but really our society as a result of technology. And it all begins with these broken elements of trust that were created by the users and the social media companies. So that is my report on the social dilemma. Thank you.